Ach, up, ach, up, ach. Oh, wang, 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 wang. Good morning. My name is Chris Fox, and today we're talking about my editing process. So, in this first intro, I'll give you a quick thumbnail sketch of how I'm editing these days, and then the next segment will show you sort of where I was at this morning, and then where I'm at now as of the close of writing at the end of the day. I did a lot of editing today. I did almost 20,000 words. In fact, let me open the document real quick. I'll get us the word count real quick. Where did I put that? I am so tired. Okay. Yeah, so about 18,000 words edited today total, which was great. I mean, I got it all done. The book is where I want it to be. And as soon as I'm done recording this intro, I'll be closing the Scrivener document, so at least I can work on it for editing. But you'll see that in the next segment. Let's talk about the editing process. So my editing process right now is really lightweight. Most of the work happens before I do the writing. Plotting saves time editing. If you plot well, you don't need to edit later. So what I will do is when I'm done at the end of the day, I've written, let's say, my 5,000 words, I will go back to the beginning of that first chapter that I worked on, and I'll read it all. And I will fix any typos. I will correct any inaccuracies. I'll expand on description. I'll just add more stuff. Which you can see me having done before in other videos. It's the same editing process that I've used in past videos for years and years and years. The difference is, in the past, I finish the manuscript and then I edit the entire thing in one pass. Now I'm editing as I go. So at the end of a day, I will do whatever chapters I wrote that day and make sure that's finished. And this is much, much faster. And then Lisa will come behind me. So as of today, when you look in the video, you'll see I think it's through chapter 8. The prologue and through chapter 8 has been edited by me. It's ready to go. Lisa's now going to edit that for publication. And then what I'll get a chance to do is, after we've sort of leapfrogged through the entire novel, where I've written it and then I've edited as I go, and then she's come in and edited behind me, then I will come back and in one day I will read the novel from start to finish and make whatever changes I want to make. So that'll be a crazy day. It really will. It often is, and I've had to do this many times, but I've gotten to a point where unless it's a really long book, I do it in one day. And if it is a really long book, then it's two. And that's the editing process. And as soon as I'm done with my final edits, then I shoot them back to Lisa. She runs a diff on the file, looks at my changes, and makes sure that everything is correct, and it's off to the store. Now, that's the accelerated version. I'd prefer to slow it down, and on top of that, once we had our final version, send that out to fans, let beta readers have a crack at it, which I'll be doing for Shattered Gods. But I haven't had a chance to do on most of my novels last year, and the quality suffered in some ways, and it's frustrating, but I needed to get these books out. So I've used that more abbreviated process. I'm going to try to relax that and get some more beta readers into the process going forward, which I hope will help and make things a little bit cleaner. Anyway, let's jump into the second half of the video. I will show you the process in action, and you guys can see sort of how I do a daily edit, where I look at a day's words and churn through it. We looked at some changes. I kind of compiled them into a separate document, and you can see what those were. Anyway, let's do it. Okay, you can see it's 6:20 the next morning. I'm being a little quiet. You'll probably notice that in the first section of the videos because my family is still asleep. I work in the garage now as opposed to a freestanding pool house, so I'm close enough that I worry about waking them up. Anyway, you'll notice if you look at the manuscript over on the right-hand side that, the chapters are starting to kind of come into order. Now, I want to talk about what I do in editing, and my assumption is that you've never seen one of my videos before, so that you haven't watched the 21-Day Novel Challenge and don't know how I used to edit. So editing is a very straightforward process for me. I write the chapter, so we're going to look at Magic Lesson as a great example, and then I come back and I just read it. So what I'm going to do is go through here, and I'm going to read through the chapter, and you're going to watch me make changes. And what I am going to do is strengthen verbs. So I'm looking always for a stronger verb. If there's a verb that'll do better, that will replace a weak verb and an adjective, I'm going to do that. I'm going to look for typos, and I'm going to look for ways to strengthen description as well. So you're just going to see those small changes occur. I thought about doing a time lapse on some of these chapters, but that's probably pointless. I mean, we've done it before, and you just, it accelerates through, and you don't really see anything change. So what I'm going to do is probably not directly show you the editing of a chapter, but look for a lesson today. So something that I have learned in one of these chapters, or a specific verb that I am changing from weak to strong, so that I can show you, hey, I made this change and this is why I did it. But what you'll see at the end of the day is I'm basically just reading the chapter before I get started today. I'm going to go from chapter 1 all the way through chapter 7, make some slight alterations, and then I'll start my writing for the day. So what I do now before starting my writing is edit the previous day's work if I didn't do it the day before. So what I normally would have done is yesterday, I would have, at the end of the day, after I finish my writing, sit down and just read what I've done. That's usually the last step to, on any given day. And what this means is that my editing is complete on the same day, usually. So I'm editing as I go. That's why it's happening so much faster. Anyway, I'm going to jump into some changes. The next thing that you'll see, it'll be much later in the day, and hopefully my work is done. Okay, here we are at the end of the day, and as you can see, I have written 4632 is the current word total, so not quite 5,000. I chose to stop here because I finished up a chapter. I don't want to start another one. It is 3:48 p.m. At 4 o'clock, I will be done with my main work day, and I'll go in for dinner, and I'll watch Kaylin for a bit. And I won't come back out here until probably after 6, maybe 6:30. So I will have a little bit of time to work this evening, but I might not get a chance to write any more words, and so I guess this is all I'm going to record for the video. Today was a good day. I got a lot done. I do want to point out that I edited a bunch of words. So if you look at the document, I did the prologue all the way through chapter 8. So that worked out to, I want to say, 18 or 19,000 words. A lot. So the whole book, like, to date. But I got it cleaned up. And so what this means is Lisa will now have access to the document. So when I finish up here and I finish this video, I'm going to go ahead and close Scrivener so she can open it up and do her edits. And she'll pull a version of this document so that she can start making edits in real time. So she'll work through chapter 8, and then I'll work through the next block of chapters. And then you can see I've got this edit marker. Lisa always knows she's going to pull up to this marker, and that's what she's got access to. So that's where we're at. What I did today is read through and just make some basic changes. I also processed any notes that were there. So my notes, you see these little triangles here. If I've got a note on a file, I went through and I did what I could with it. In this case, I still need to define what White's new trope is, but it doesn't have to be done in this portion of the book, so I will do that later. The rest of the stuff got dealt with. And what that means is I will only see the book really one more time. So when I'm done writing it, and Lisa's edited the entire book, I'll get a chance to read through the manuscript one more time, and we'll make one more set of changes, and then Lisa will edit my changes, and then off to the store it goes. So it's a pretty streamlined process, as I mentioned in the intro of the video. What else is important to note? Oh, I guess we should record the words. I was looking up the official name of a D20. It's an icosahedron, because I want to make sure I spelled it correctly. Since that is the object Bert is looking for. Anyway, I wrote to 1,000,000 words, so today is 1.5. What was my final count so far? 4632. 4632. Oops. Let's actually record that. 4632. There we go. So I don't love the fact that I didn't, get the last 400 words today, but I will make it up tomorrow. If I haven't mentioned this yet so far, the way my work schedule works, from Monday through Friday, I'm trying to do 5,000 words a day. If I do that, if I get 25,000 words written and edited by the end of Friday, I don't have to work that weekend. If I don't get those words done, then I do have to work that weekend. So any day that I have a shortfall here means work on Saturday, so I'm not loving it. But I'm also not that far behind, so I'm not super concerned about it, especially given the amount of words that I edited yesterday and today. I mean, I just went nuts getting this novel cleaned up. And I'm pretty happy with it so far. So this first chunk of the novel is actually coming along a lot better than I thought that it might. Okay, is there anything else that I need to show you today? Oh yes, the notable changes, the whole meat of the video that I was going to record. This is the whole reason for this segment. As I was going through today, I thought, I could show you, my screen accelerated and you could see me editing, but that's not useful. I think what is useful is looking at specific changes that I made today that I think improve the narrative. So, there was a point where the word looked wasn't quite sufficient. Period is more specific, and it worked in that instance. Suddenly rose. You'll see this often, where you've got an adjective and then a weak verb. You're just replacing it with a stronger verb. I do this all over the place. I see word repetition all the time, and I caught a lot of instances of this where, in this instance, quite was used twice in one sentence and 3 times in the same paragraph. And so I vary that word usage. I find something that will work in place of quite. So you're not hearing the same word over and over. Short words like sat, not very descriptive. In this instance, huddled worked a lot better. Saw several new faces. Several new faces greeted her is just a little bit better, I think. And you could read a lot of these. I'm not going to go through every one. But dialogue is something I worked with. So, for example, since I hadn't really figured out who Darby was as a character, I was just writing generic dialogue. But then you come back and you kind of give him the same Irish feel that Darby, O'Gill and the Little People had. I'm sort of channeling Little People, the king of the leprechauns. He would say, "Name's Darby," or something more like that. And so, I changed the dialogue to match, and I went through a little bit. And I sort of, changed phrases like this to phrases like this, so he sounds a lot more leprechaun-like. The only plot change that I made today was the riddle that I used. So I mentioned in yesterday's video that I had needed to replace 1,000 words. So it wasn't very funny. I was trying to use the Bechdel test in a funny way. It ended up being stupid. I cut it, and I made Darby instead, which I like. I think Darby's a great character. He works in the book. Where was I going with that? Oh, yes. Didn't make very many plot changes. Because I almost everything I write, I just keep it at the first draft. Like when I'm first writing it, I might tweak a few things here and there, but I would say at this point, 90+% of everything I write is final form and just needs a little bit of basic editing. I don't make changes. I don't, often change the plot in wild ways. If I get to a point where I'm not sure what to write, I stop, and then I figure the plot out, and then I go forward. So there might be a day where I take a plotting day, and you'll see a video about that. But I don't ever really have to do big rewrites. In this case, the last thing that I had to rewrite was the riddle in this chapter. I was using a riddle that was just kind of stupid, and I say stupid because the audience wouldn't get it. When my buddy Aaron Jordan and I we co-GM'd a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. This is all the way back in the 1990s, and we were at a pizza parlor where we'd run it. We had to create a riddle one night for our party, and so we got a book of riddles, and this is before the internet was a thing, so finding, riddles was not as easy. And we plucked a riddle at random out of this book, and the riddle we gave them is, when is the moon like a wagon? And the answer was, when it's on the wane. And if you don't know, a wane is a synonym for wagon. Well, no one knows that, so that's a stupid riddle, and I was putting it in a book because it's kind of an inside joke that Aaron would get, and so would the players in that game. But writing something that is not terribly funny, that 10 people maximum in the entire world will recognize, probably not great. And so I went with a slightly more amusing riddle in the chapter. I won't focus on it here. But hopefully it's decent. I tried to make it at least a little bit funnier. I just did some Google searching for decent riddles, found one that was interesting, and hopefully that reads well for people. I also wrote the chapter about the High Elves, which is pretty funny. So when I say High Elves, I mean High Elves is in they're high on weed. They smoke marijuana, and their capital is Humboldt County. So that should give you some idea of how that chapter goes down. They're in Keeble Forest, baking cookies. And then icosahedron, where Bert actually reaches the D20. You can see, that's sort of humming along and getting through this novel very, very quickly, but I've reached a point where lots of stuff is not fleshed out and needs to be plotted. So what I'm going to have to do this evening is sit down and try to flesh more of the stuff out so that I at least have 5 or 6 chapter placeholders that I'm happy with. So tomorrow, there's no gaps. There's no needing to figure out what I need to write. I'm just ready to crank out more chapters. Anyway, I think I'm going to cut the video here. If you have more questions, always feel free to ask. Yesterday's video made it very clear you guys want a plotting video. Not everybody, I'm sure, will find that useful, but most people will. And so you're going to get probably a plotting video as we're rolling into Bert 3. And if I run into any plot problems between now and the end of Bert 2, I'm going to focus on those and make videos. But for now, there's not enough really material there to focus on and say, hey, this is how you adjust to plot problems, and this is how I plot things. Because this novel is already mostly done. in terms of plotting. Like I'd already done that work, that's been documented in videos 2 years ago, and that groundwork is not something I can really rehash. But the next novel we get into definitely will focus a lot more on how I'm plotting that, and making the decisions that I'm making before I write the book. Anyway, again, I do need to get back to the writing, so I'm going to cut it here, and I will see you guys soon.